To a major diplomatic development following the return of 6 South African activists, including Nelson Mandela's grandson, Mandla Mandela, after their detention by Israeli forces while attempting to deliver aid via the Global Sumud Flotilla. Now, the activists, who were part of an international contingent of approximately 450 people on 42 boats, claimed that they were subjected to targeted harsher treatment by Israeli authorities, specifically because of South Africa's historic case accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. Now, we heard the powerful claim from Mandla Mandela himself, who stated that their treatment was, and I quote, "Because we are a nation that dared through our government to take apartheid Israel to the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court and hold them accountable," end quote. Now, this stands in sharp contrast to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, which vehemently denied any claims of mistreatment, labeling the allegations as part of a pre-planned fake news campaign. Furthermore, activists like Dr. Fatima Hendricks and Zahira Samar provided shocking testimony, alleging that their hijabs were forcibly removed and they were completely stripped naked in front of Israeli soldiers, treatment that they claim was unique to the South African passport holders. Now, the incident has nonetheless raised fresh questions about detainee treatment, diplomatic tensions, and independent verification by rights groups. Now, to discuss whether the interception of the Global Sumud Flotilla has done more to break the naval blockade in the court of public opinion than any government resolution has managed to date, we have joining us on the conversation Dr. Alex Mashilo, Central Committee member, South African Communist Party. He'll be speaking on this. Thank you so much, Dr. Mashilo, for your time and for joining us at the moment.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you and to the viewers.
It's a pleasure. Now, we're actually expecting Dr. Fatima Hendricks to come and give a count of what transpired, when they were kidnapped by Israel. But then we'll speak to you first, and when she comes up, we'll try to find her own account, and then you can speak from what she says. Now, activists have actually claimed that they were targeted because of the ICJ case. What does Israel's alleged singling out of South Africans mean for Pretoria's ability to pursue justice at the World Court?
You will recall that the South African government, on behalf of the South African, peace-loving South African people, was the first government here on earth to take the apartheid Israeli settler regime to the International Court of Justice for genocide. At that time, many people did not see an act of genocide taking place there. But today, as we talk to you, over 67,000 Palestinians have been killed as a result of that genocide. Over 160,000 Palestinians have been injured. Massive destruction of Palestinian infrastructure, schools, clinics, other healthcare centers have been destroyed. Infrastructure was destroyed. And what is more disheartening is that the majority of the people that the apartheid Israeli settler regime has killed in this act of genocide are women and children, as well as elderly people. Now, the mission to offer humanitarian support to the Palestinians was great, and as the South African Communist Party, we supported and we supported our fellow South Africans and others who were together with them to go and offer this humanitarian aid. In the first place, why would you block humanitarian aid when you know that we have killed over 67,000 people? You will only be doing so because you are still carrying out an act of the genocide. You are blocking humanitarian aid so that you can starve the people, and you use the blockade to the humanitarian aid as part of your genocidal strategy. That is completely unacceptable. We say to our heroes, they've done very well. We have heard from their accounts that they were treated badly, and we believe what they are saying and the reasons that they are giving, given the fact that the South African government has been the vanguard for justice, and which we still want to see happening, and there still needs to be accountability on the treatment of our fellow South Africans and others who were in the humanitarian aid mission.
Okay. All right, Dr. Mashilo, I'm told that Dr. Fatima Hendricks has joined us. Dr. Fatima, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Fatima is a member of Global Sumud Flotilla. It is so good to have you, and we sincerely sympathize with what you went through. We've been trying your number from the last time that we spoke, on this particular show, and you've been unreachable, but we're glad you're out and you're safe at home. Welcome back.
And it's so wonderful to have this opportunity to chat with you and with the beautiful people of Nigeria.
It's a pleasure. You look very tired, and we will not be taking too much of your time. We just want you to share with us your experience. You allege, or not allege, you say that your hijab was forcibly removed, that you were stripped in front of male soldiers. Can you walk us through, that moment and how certain you were that the specific religious and personal violation was calculated because you owned a South African passport?
Thank you so much for that description. I do want to put some perspective to it. When we were taken to Ashdod, we were processed, and part of it was a security search. I'd removed the underneath of my scarf because I was told that was what I needed to do. I was threatened with force. And I had the top part of my scarf on my head, and they called the supervisor and said that I had to remove the top to give it to them, which I did. And I was expecting in that moment to get it back, and they said they would not return it to me. What I expected to be a few seconds turned into hours being without hijab. I was strip searched by female soldiers, and the female soldiers went out to the male soldiers and described my body to them, and they all mocked me at that point. But the point here is not about my experience. The point here is about the brutality of the Zionist regime, which we witnessed when we actually entered to the prison, which was 2 kilometers from the Egyptian border and about 30 kilometers from Gaza itself. We saw and read the prisoners' stories on the walls that they had written about how long they'd been there in detention. Some were taken from Nasser Hospital, some from Jabalia camp. I witnessed the blood-spattered walls in the courtyard, and I remember going up and putting my hand on top of the dried blood, which the soldiers obviously did not appreciate at all. In our cell, I shared a cell with Greta Thunberg and an MP from France, other activists. We were having a meal at that point, and soldiers came barged into our room and said we needed to move. And so we tried to move our mattresses to relocate to the other room. A scuffle ensued. One comrade was dropped to the floor, pushed the floor. Another comrade tried to embrace her to prevent the soldiers from trampling on her. They pulled her by the hair on the ground, and it escalated very, very quickly. When we were pushed into the room, we tried to de-escalate the situation, and then I actually observed that they were getting ready with riot gear. And subsequent to that, they stormed our cell with riot gear, dogs at the back, and came in and basically had rifles, guns with green lasers pointed at our heads as we kneeled on the floor. And we were 10 or 12 women at that point. I can't really recount how many. We were in the cell, but surrounded by dozens and dozens of soldiers in our room and outside. So, this is the kind of violence that they will, inflict upon unarmed women. And imagine given instructions to show restraint against all of us because of the consular and the Global Sumud Flotilla being so public and international. We can only imagine what they do to the Palestinian people.
Absolutely. Now, you didn't reach Gaza, and the aid was intercepted. Now, do you consider the mission itself a failure, or has all of this, the whole incident and the testimony, has it made the effort a success in a way that the aid delivery itself could not have been?
It has been the 38th, the Global Sumud Flotilla, our flotilla was the 38th initiative. This initiative began in 2005. So, we have been trying to break this illegal siege of Gaza for many, many years now. And this was particularly important because of the global impact that it's had on the ground. It created a focus on Gaza, a collective human effort across the globe, and awareness that was nothing like we've seen before. We saw Italian dock workers going on strike. We've seen protests all around the world, shining light on the genocide, which would not have happened. We are committed to opening up this humanitarian corridor of aid. We have 1,000 Madeleines that was intercepted. We have the Conscience that's been intercepted. We still have some of our comrades that are left in jail, in the prison. So this is an active, ongoing, direct, non-violent mission, and more flotillas will be coming until we are able to break the siege of Gaza.
All right, well, just before we let you go, having gone through this terrifying ordeal, what is your message to the many South Africans and also activists worldwide who look to you for strength? Would you do this again? If yes, how do you plan to continue your activism from Gaza, for Gaza from home?
If there's anything that I take from this is that the people are indeed powerful. This was one collective human effort amongst many other human efforts in die-ins, sit-ins, protests, and marches from across the globe. And it is at this moment of the ceasefire, it is the Palestinian people that have resisted with just their basic survival that has forced and turned the tide, together with the collective solidarity from ordinary people from around the world. We've got to continue to put pressure on the players now that are claiming to be peacemakers. They are not peacemakers. They are doing their legal obligations under international law to end the genocide and to let aid in. And this is being masked as a peace deal. The first thing is to stop the genocide, have the ceasefire, and let aid in, and then begin the process of justice, and in that justice begin to talk peace. And so we really need to not conflate the two. The ceasefire is one issue and a peace deal is a separate issue, and a long, long journey of justice and accountability and amends that needs to be made for stolen land, for a brutal occupation and a raging genocide.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Hendricks, for taking time out to even speak to us on this. And please, do get your rest. And once again, we're happy that you're home safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's come back to you, Dr. Mashilo. You've heard all that she has to say. Let's hear your thoughts on what she went through.
That's terrible. Imagine what the Palestinians are going through. And I'm referring to the population against who the genocide is targeted. If South Africans who come from the southernmost tip of Africa could be treated in that way, simply because their government on behalf of the population wanted justice at the International Court of Justice for Israel to account to stop the genocide. Think about the victims of the genocide themselves. And if I were to add to what Dr. Hendricks has said, all we need is the freedom of historical Palestine. is everybody to live in peace. We are South Africans here. Here in South Africa, we have had the same situation. Europeans came to South Africa, claimed this land as theirs, confined us to smaller and smaller and smaller spaces. In fact, left us with only 13% of our land, taking the rest, saying this is their land. They established a state here. They confined us into smaller places, organized along tribal lines, created wars. We know what the Palestinians have gone through based on our historical experience. But what the Palestinians have gone through now is worse than what we ourselves have gone through. Although the two pains are incomparable, what has been driving them is the system of apartheid. People coming into your land, establishing a state backed by powerful forces, and taking your land away, your rights away. If you listen to the Israeli Prime Minister, he says that he is opposed to a Palestinian state. In whose land is he opposed to a Palestinian state? Think about that. This is the same thing we South Africans experience, but the Palestinians have seen the West. Just in this period since the genocide began, this is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Over 67,000 people killed. No.
Dr. Mashilo, the president, that's President Ramaphosa, also called this an abduction, beyond the slow ICJ process. What is South Africa's immediate legal leverage to challenge what is effectively an act of sovereign infringement or sovereignty infringement?
This will have to be added to the case on the genocide. Remember, there were judgments ordering Israel to abide by certain principles. And what we have seen is that it went ahead regardless of the judgments that were delivered. That case has to continue, and obviously there must be additions. And the additions must include what has happened. We need accountability. The leaders of the apartheid Israeli settler regime have to be held accountable. And I agree with Dr. Fatima Hendricks that those people who are now coming forward to say that they are peacekeepers, they are peacemakers, they are not. It is the weapons from the United States of America that Israel is using to commit that genocide. How peaceful is that? It is not.
Okay, and now Dr. Mashilo, does it bother you at all that, while the South African government was immediately and forcefully vocal, many major Western governments, whose citizens were also detained, have been notably quiet about, the whole incident?
Let us not forget that the situation in historical Palestine is a result of the direct involvement and complicity of Western governments. That area was under the so-called British mandate. Britain and the United States were responsible for the root of that situation, the establishment of Israel and supporting Israel through and through when it was expropriating Palestinian land, building itself to what it is. They have been supporting it. So they are complicit in what Israel has done, even in supplying the weapons that it has used to commit the genocide.
So now, the Global Sumud Flotilla, emerged from a consolidation of numerous activist movements. They came together to, push this. So when multilateral institutions like the UN has actually failed, civil society acts is what a lot of people have been saying. Does the success of the flotilla in forcing a confrontation confirm the growing importance of civil society, maritime movements, where other institutions like the UN have failed to act?
Institutions like the United Nations should be representing the people, and where they fail to act, the people must stand up, which is why we supported the Global Humanitarian Mission, and the people did stand up, and clearly we were going to see more and more of what they did had the situation not developed to where it is, to this ceasefire that we respect, and we wish to see peace. We wish to see the freedom of historical Palestine. We wish to see people being treated equally. In the eyes of the Western nations who dominate United Nations Security Council, that is nothing. I can tell you, if what happened to the Palestinians, if the genocide by Israel on the Palestinians were to happen to anyone in the West, they will have used the United Nations Security Council to act. But they can't, because behind the scenes, both directly and indirectly, they were involved in generating the situation going back to 1948 and before, a little bit before that.
Okay, so what about the AU? Because I know the AU has often struggled for a unified voice, on this conflict. Will this detention finally force a decisive, actionable and united policy from the African Union on the Gaza blockade?
The African Union, you will recall, started as the Organization for African Unity. Unfortunately, Africa is not yet united. Imperialist forces still have control in Africa, and that control takes place in the form of two levers of control, that is neo-colonialism and imperialist domination and exploitation. Israel is also involved in dividing African states. No wonder some of the governments in Africa will be supporting what Israel has done and have never uttered a word if they do not support what Israel has done. There are problems. We need to stand together as Africans to push forward with the second phase of the independence of our continent, because as things stand right now, our continent is not independent. You will recall when Israel was made an observer under the African Union. On what grounds was it made an observer? It is not in Africa. It is not an African state. Why was it made an observer? Those are the problems that affect the African continent, which we need to continue the struggle. Our forebears fought to achieve the first phase of liberation. We need to continue the battle, such as the one that was led by this humanitarian mission, to ensure complete independence of our continent. As things stand, our continent is not completely independent. It is not independent. Our resources are still exploited by the West. What you see as development in former Western colonies is a result of their underdevelopment of the African people and African nations. We have not received reparations for that. And those people continue to exploit. Look at what France is doing in former French colonies that it called its overseas provinces in Africa. You will see that Africa is yet to... In the Sahel region, there is a momentum to try and finish off French colonialism, but some states are against what the people in the Sahel region are doing. We need to stand together as Africans to fight for the complete liberation and independence of our continent, to dismantle colonial and imperialist domination. Until we achieve success in this regard, we should not offer any impression that we are indeed free.
All right. Now, while we let you go, I would love to have your final thoughts on all of this, especially with South Africa being a key member of the BRICS coalition. How will this incident be leveraged at upcoming BRICS or even UN General Assembly meetings?
If you look at the imperialist regimes of Western Europe and the United States, they have used every single international platform to enforce their agendas. South Africa will have to continue its democratic engagement, different from what these Western imperialist forces and former colonial states are doing, colonies are doing, former colonial powers are doing. So it is important to continue engaging. It can be in 2025 that over 67,000 people are murdered in an act of genocide since 2023, and no serious action is taken by the world bodies that were established to ensure peace. Certainly something is wrong. We need to interrogate this and continue the struggle for alternatives and the struggle for collective alternatives, as well as the struggle for the workers of the world to unite, because we have nothing to lose. If we do not unite, we will continue losing. If we unite, we will win. And the humanitarian aid mission, the flotilla mission, has proven something, has made a mark, has elevated the situation. We need to take things up from there. The Europeans were vocal about what is going on in Ukraine, for example. Compare that to their attitude towards the Palestinian people. There is also racism involved here, and we must call it by its name and condemn it in the strongest terms possible.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mashilo, for joining us. Dr. Alex Mashilo, Central Committee Member, South African Communist Party. Thank you so much. And we also had Dr. Fatima Hendricks, Member, Global Sumud Flotilla, who joined us to share her own take on the incidents that happened, in Israel. Thank you so much for your time.